What's up, guys? We had a pretty fun and wild game here against King Arthur, 1996. We got black pieces, and let's go through the game. So we're gonna play the Pirc and see what happens. So he starts off with knight c3, maybe heading into the classical. Knight f3, so now we're in the classical. I just developed my bishop, and he plays h3 because he doesn't want me pinning his knight with my bishop, and now my bishop might have a hard time developing. So I just castle. He develops his bishop to d3 and prepares castling. I go knight c6, pressuring this pawn and potentially jumping to b4, hitting the light squared bishop. For example, if he pushes d5, I can hit his bishop. So he plays a3 so that I never have knight to b4. And now I have an opportunity that I'm developed to play e5, which is what we want if he lets us do it. He plays d5, hitting my knight. So now that we have the closed center, I want to, like, my plan that I came up with was f5, kind of like in King's Indian structures. So I move my knight to e7 because I want to gather things on the king side and play f5. The other way to play this is to attack at the head of the pawn chain with c6, which is better, but I went for f5. He retreats the knight. Maybe he's planning on pushing the c-pawn and having the race that I thought we were going to have, where I push f5 and he pushes c4, c5. Now I should probably attack with c6, but I'm going for my f5 plan, so I move the knight out of the way so that I can push my f-pawn. He just castles, normal response. Now I play f5, so everything's according to my plan. He goes bishop to g5, but I think he should be maybe pawn storming me and just doing what they do in the King's Indian. I'm not sure. What else can he do? Yeah, I don't think he should be playing on this side, but I could be wrong. So now I get my knight off of e8 and get it in so I can start moving all of my forces towards his king slowly. And now he develops a knight here, which is a little weird. It's very restricted, and I still think he probably should go the other side of the board. But now I use this as an opportunity to play f4 with tempo, which means his knight has to go back to a weird square or where it came from. And then his bishop is kind of in la-la land. I can force the trade if I want, because otherwise he's trapped. So I kick the knight. The knight has to go back here. And now I want to launch my stuff up the board. So I start with tempo h6 on the bishop. He has to take or he's trapped. I take back with the rook because my plan is to push these pawns, and I'll just slide one of my rook over to whichever file is open. Now he finally starts with c4. Now I push g5. It's a race to c. He continues with b4 so that he can push c5. So it's a logical human move. And instead of preparing with h5 or defending this pawn on h5, I immediately go g4 to open up the file, because he can't ignore it since it hits the knight. You know, if let's say he moves the knight, then you open it up this way. So he basically has to take it. Now you could move your rook over first, or you could just take the pawn immediately. I took immediately. He retreats his knight and hits my bishop. I could play h5, and if he takes, I take, and these pawns actually look really nice, and I have the open h file. That's interesting. I like that. I didn't do that though. I move my bishop back here just to leave it on the board, leave a pin, leave this looking awkward, maybe provoke f3. No reason to trade this knight yet. So he does play f3, breaking this pin, but now it gives up squares. It gives up some dark squares, and I want to activate my pieces. So I do what I had planned a long time ago. Rook to g6. It's a little weird that my bishop is, can't retreat, but it won't ever need to retreat because this knight can't come here. So it's fine here. So I move my rook over, and now I'm starting my attack, and he hasn't really started anything here. He moves his king out of the way because, who wants to stay in a pin? That can't be good. And I'm surprised it says there's only one good move, but I figured I need to activate all my pieces. I mean, I could have activated the other ones. I don't know why it was super important to activate this one right now, immediately. Anyway, I get this dark diagonal. He gets the dark diagonal in return. And now I just move my king out of the way to safety behind this pawn, so I can start shenanigans on the king side. He lashes out with g4 because he sees what's coming. He sees I'm gonna move the rook back one, move the knight up one, then this and this and the knight are gonna line up on this square. Something's gonna land there. The other rook's gonna come behind. So he's like, I'm not waiting for that to come. So he lashes out and traps my bishop, except on passant, and he doesn't trap my bishop. He recaptures with the pawn. He opened up some space, but I feel like that's better for me. I have the bishop pair. I already have rook on the g file, and the key to this whole variation of en passant knight takes is that at the end of the line I have bishop h4, which seals the deal. It's amazing that I ended up losing this position. Can you believe that? That's crazy. So I pin this. It's double hit. He defends it one more time. I attack it one more time and activate my queen. So now only my rook needs to be put in the game. He takes my light squared bishop, even though his knight was supposed to be pinned. I take his queen, but his idea, he actually has knight f6 with the royal fork. But I calculated that I take the knight with the rook, he takes the queen, I take the rook, he takes the bishop, and I come out ahead. I come out and exchange up a rook for the bishop. So I double my rooks. He pushes maybe to make a square for his knight, and maybe to create a passed pawn. I activate my rook to the most active square where it targets a bishop and a pawn behind it. The opponent removes their bishop to a defended square. And I thought to myself that I'm so winning that I just automatically didn't care and took this pawn. Like, I didn't calculate anything. I said, let me just take the free pawn. I'll just keep taking stuff. I'll trade and I'm gonna win. So he just took a pawn in the center. I'm obviously just gonna take back, and it's his turn. He pushes, and I'm just thinking to myself, oh, it doesn't matter what I do. And it definitely mattered what I did. Um, so I moved my rook to b3, which was a really bad move because of this alignment issue and the fact that he has d6 with tempo. Those two things, either one of them by themselves is not a problem, but combined, it gives him everything he needs. Because he pushes with tempo, I have to respond because it hits the knight. So I take it, he takes it, I have to move the knight. So I move it to a square that covers the queening square, and it's protected. But the problem is now, he has this skewer thingy. And there's one way out of it, and I chose the wrong move. In my head, I looked at this and I'm like, it doesn't matter which rook I lose. But now that I think of it, my move doesn't really make sense, but it does matter which rook you lose. Because the correct move is rook takes b4, immediately taking the pawn. He takes the rook, you take, and the thing is, this pawn is never threatening to promote. But the way I played, I moved my rook up to g3, defending, thinking he'll take, which he did. I'll take, and it's kind of the same thing, you know? But it's not the same thing because before there was a rook on the back rank, and now I lifted that rook. So my king in the other line was closer to the pawn, and now it's on h7 because before the bishop took the rook and the king had to recapture. He brings his knight in. I take the pawn, thinking, how can that be a bad move? He gives me a check. I have to move my king, I might as well attack the knight. He goes to the center with a defended square, hitting the rook. If it wasn't a defended square, I would have gone behind it, but since that's not going to work, I just go here thinking I'll cut off his king, and I'll, like, I don't know, maybe go here and get around or something. He goes behind the pawn. He can move the knight anytime and push the pawn. I move my king closer because I need to get rid of this pawn to win the game. I already messed up enough. He gives me a check. I go to the wrong place. Yeah, I don't know why I didn't make contact with the pawn, because even if he goes here, I can go here, and he can't check me ever because I take the pawn, and if he takes this pawn, I don't know, run up the a pawn. I went to the back rank, which was a passive. He gives me this check, and intuitively I said, okay, this square is covered, this square is covered, these are here. I didn't even calculate. I said, oh, I have to go to king d8 because everything else just looks dumb. And king d8 is the only bad move. Apparently, king f7 and king f8 are much better because of what happened in the game. If you go to d8, you kind of box yourself in so that when the knight moves, the rook, the pawn, and the knight are basically checkmating you. So you kind of have to go here to escape this box. Let's see. Yeah, look, 7:09 on the clock, and then I moved 7:06, and from 7:06 to 7:06, I didn't even think for one full second. The timer didn't change. I don't know why I'm moving in 3 seconds and 1 second, but yeah, I just insta moved as if this was like a 3-minute game. I mean, they do look like they would be good moves at first glance, but I guess that's if you have no understanding of that you're going to be checkmated. Okay, so what he does to punish me is he moves it over to the open file and threatens checkmate. It's that easy. I didn't even consider it. I moved in a split second. And this is so obvious, it just ruins my game completely. Because how do you get out of this? Your rook is on the completely wrong spot. Your knight is useless. Your king can't run because it has no way to go. And so I'm like, oh, I just lost the game. And so I tried to do something cute, and I went knight e7. And I figured that he would take me, and then I would take him, and then he could do whatever he wants with his knight, you know, check me. I could move my king here. He'll probably check me. I'll probably move my king. Maybe he'll take another pawn. But I'll have this rook and these two passed pawns and this third pawn. And I figured, well, I can't really lose that position, even though I'm sacking a knight right now, because these pawns are awesome. So I'm like, alright, let me just do this, and he'll go for it, and and I'll draw him in the end. But he did not. He found another only move that's completely destroyed me. So his rook g1 followed by rook g7 just obliterated me. Because now he's threatening to take with the rook, which doesn't give me any of what I was looking for. It's just going to end up in a checkmate with rook e8. And so now I'm like, oh, it's over. So I just give him spite checks, and that's it. The game's over. It's insane because, okay, so in my mind I said I'm going to attack on the king side, King's Indian style. I kind of did that. And if you show me this position, I'm like, when I had this on the board, I was like, this is crazy. This is so good for me. I'll just follow it up. I'll bring my queen and my rook in. I'll triple. What could possibly go wrong? It looks so nice. And then I win with queen. He gets it back, but I get the exchange for it. I have the open file. He's got this useless bishop. I double. I activate. It looks so good. I did everything so nicely. And then from this point forward, ever since I went pawn hunting instead of trying to find the best move like I've been doing. That's what happens with autopilot. I stop trying to find the best moves, and I start saying, oh, lose pawn, lose pawn, lose pawn. I don't even consider my opponent's response anymore. That's how bad it gets mentally. And then you just start making moves. Hold on, let me see something. Okay. Yeah, this really screwed me. I mean, it's not that move, but it's the start of the collapse for sure. But this makes no sense, wanting to recapture so that you can get behind the pawn that you can take immediately. So logically, it doesn't even make sense. Because in that case, you take this immediately, and you get your king closer. Yeah. That's what happens when you move in 5 seconds. I didn't consider anything, man. That was bad. Knight. I mean, here, yeah. So basically, Think before you move, folks. Still 75%. Not bad. Look at this. Look how black it was. Wow. All right. We finally lost the game. But now we learned a little bit, so the next one will be even better.